can certainly see some faces that are familiar. So welcome, thank you for joining. I'm Dr. Stephanie Minchin, and I'm presenting an interview with Heather Mason on behalf of More Yoga and the Minded Institute, sharing this conversation as part of our Mental Health Awareness Week programme. So just a little bit of background from my areas of work in clinical psychology and yoga teaching. A few years ago I was at a conference and Heather was providing a talk on yoga for mental health, and at that time it was for me like a light bulb moment, like, oh my gosh, hearing about yoga therapy, and it suddenly was a seed planted in a journey that I knew I was compelled to go on. So a couple of years later, following sort of Heather's inspiration and being guided by her training, coming to the end of my yoga therapy training, and we work quite closely together, and it's been a real pleasure to invite Heather to share her wisdom this evening. And yeah, we're here for 45 minutes going through a couple of questions about kindness for Mental Health Awareness Week. Also to hear about how to integrate yoga into your practice, kindness into your yoga practice. And also we'll make space for questions at the end. I'll try and monitor the chat function. So if as Heather's talking, if people want a clarifying question or a comment, I'll just be monitoring that as we go through. So if that feels okay, Heather, if you'd like to start by introducing yourself, it would be great for people to know a little bit more about who you are and your work.
Okay. Mental Health Awareness Week is meaningful to me because I have suffered from depression, anxiety, and PTSD. And in fact, I think that my depression, anxiety, and PTSD were worsened by the fact that I was embarrassed, that there was this stigma. So it's so important to me to speak my message as part of my own healing journey and empowering other people to not feel ashamed of having mental health difficulties and recognizing, in fact, it's really pervasive. I was lecturing on mental health all day, and just to add in a statistic, the World Health Organization says that in a given year, 10% of the world's population has diagnosable depression or anxiety, right? So it's really more prevalent than most health conditions, and yet we're often uncomfortable speaking about it. So my journey out of depression, anxiety, and trauma was in some ways unique. I didn't go to therapy or just do yoga. I moved to Southeast Asia for 3 years and practiced intense mindfulness meditation and yoga in monasteries and ashrams. And that transformed my life. And so many of the things that I did afterwards were to bring that back to people. Actually, in the beginning, I wanted to be a Buddhist nun, and I came to the UK to do a master's in Buddhist studies and understand what the original teachings were before I shaved all this hair off. After I got back into the world and having a positive mental health in comparison to before, I thought, oh, there's joy in living. Maybe I'm attached. I don't want to go back. And that culminated in various other trainings. I had already trained as a yoga teacher. I trained as a psychotherapist, a yoga therapist. I did postgraduate education in neuroscience and physiology. And I formed the Minded Institute, which is one of the primary yoga therapy trainings in Europe and maybe internationally, and other organizations as well. I'm really focused on bringing yoga into healthcare, so I founded the Yoga and Healthcare Alliance as well. I do work with Parliament to bring yoga into everyday life for people, into the healthcare system, and various other things. But by and large, even though I'm interested in yoga for cardiovascular disease and cancer and various other things, my heart remains with working with people with mental health issues because I have such a lived experience of it. And I'm really honored that More Yoga, right, which has more studios than anywhere else, invited me to speak on this very important occasion.
And I think all of your experience, Heather, really is reflected in how your work is culminated. And particularly with the yoga therapy training, it's so integrated across so many different disciplines of your life's work, and actually making that move to bring it into healthcare is a really pioneering position. So yeah, I think, yeah, your work is really, really fantastic. So thinking about kindness, so the theme of Mental Health Awareness Week, I'm wondering, what does kindness mean to you, and how do you bring it into your practice?
So it's such a broad term. For me, kindness is the willingness to stop, to recognize the need of myself and other, and to bring gentleness into that moment. And kindness comes with wisdom. So it's also being aware of what I genuinely need for myself and what somebody else might need, and being willing to engage in that. And there's an effortful nature for me associated with this word. Like, sometimes kindness is not always doing the status quo or what's easiest, but willing to lift the bar, right? Maybe like I don't have time to be kind to myself, or it takes time out of my day to really bring kindness to another, but it's that willingness to say, you know, this is an important value. And so that's also inherent in it, is effort.
Mm. Yeah, that really resonates with some earlier conversations with colleagues, actually, about how sometimes being kind is the harder thing to do. I think particularly when we're faced with other challenges or trying to turn that inwards to ourselves. And thinking about mental health, and when at times when we're really struggling, and how hard it is to overcome that inner critic and be kind to ourselves. Do you think there's a correlation between kindness and mental health?
Definitely. I mean, I think that often we aren't kind to ourselves. I think that the busyness of society, by the way, undermines that capacity and all the things we have to worry about all of the time. And we're so busy focusing on what we need to do in order to keep up, to survive, that we don't think about the gentleness and our own particular needs. I also think that, you know, moving outside of myself and to other people, I think that there is a lot of strain in modern life, and people do, like we said, are often feel challenged to be kind to others, because it's easier to just be in either your own little bubble or reactive because life is busy and life is hard. And we may not have an awareness of the impact of even the most basic words that are not gentle on somebody else. And people can be kind of at a vulnerable level, and something that we say, I think, can push them over the edge. So there's this real sense of responsibility to constantly come from that place. You know, Gandhi said, be kind. Everyone's having a hard job at life. You know, and we have to remember that. We have to remember that when we're frustrated with other people as well, that they're probably not doing it to be horrible, whatever it is we don't like, but they also are struggling. And it's about having that idea of theory of mind, being able to move beyond what we perceive as happening and imagine what might be happening for them, and say, okay, the buck is going to stop here. I'm not going to react. Instead, I'm going to come back with something gentle, kind. And then we impart, I think, the possibility for somebody to re-perceive themselves in another way and maybe enhance their mental health, just a modicum, right?
That really speaks to certainly the challenges that we face and all the adversity of modern living. Actually, even before the crisis and the frustrations and the stress that many of us are experiencing at the moment. And Mark Rowland, so the chief exec of the Mental Health Foundation, said that now more than ever, we need to be practicing kindness in our daily lives. So how do you think we can cultivate more self-kindness? Just in our daily lives, especially in this time of coronavirus?
Okay, so I'll talk about, can I also talk about other kindness? Because I think it's both.
Yeah.
So self-kindness is, in this really challenging moment, I think being able to move out of that anxiety state of what we need to do in order to be okay. For example, some of us might be really nervous about our jobs, right? And to say, okay, even though I'm nervous about that, even though I don't want to get up in the morning and do my meditation or my yoga practice, because I'd rather get online right away and look for jobs and make sure I'm safe, that I'm actually going to preference my own well-being, that I'm going to take this time to do my exercise, to send myself love, to take a little bit of a longer shower, and then believe that coming from that place of more stability will in the long term benefit me, right? I think also there's so much around other kindness right now. You know, at the very beginning of lockdown, what happened? Everybody was running around trying to get toilet paper. My sister and I were laughing about it because she works in public health. And she's like, why not soap? Why not? Why toilet paper? I mean, not to be crass, but at the end of the day, if you can't properly, you know, clean yourself afterwards, that's not going to have the same repercussions as not being able to wash your hands and maybe get COVID-19. Mm-hmm. But people were coming from such a fear-based place that they were hoarding. And then because certain people were hoarding, then other people that might not hoard started to hoard, right? Or I've seen, you know, people who are afraid of the financial future. So they're trying constantly to not pay for anything right now without recognizing that other people are afraid for their future. And that everybody's kind of in the same boat. So if there is something that they have financially, that maybe they should be considering paying for it. That when they go to the grocery store, that maybe just take a little bit less food. Most of us probably don't need it because we all need to survive. We all need to feel safe at this time. The other piece is, and I've noticed this, you know, there are some people who are really like calm and lovely right now. I live right near a park and I go with my dog 3 times a day. So even though I'm not having lots of interactions, I have those interactions, you know, and there are people who are super, super stressed out and very aggressive. And about thinking, what must it be like for them right now, for them to be reacting in this way? And I could do the same, you know, and there's that moment, especially when Minnie's like my dog, the love of my life, somebody said something about her. And I think, oh, there's probably something going on with them right now. Can I just take a step back and be gentle? They might be afraid for their life. They might be afraid for their livelihood and for other people. And for me, coming back to self-kindness, that is a kindness towards myself as well. Because if I'm not reactive, then I feel better about myself. And also when I act with morality during a crisis, it helps, I think, to afford me more self-esteem as it does for other people. You know, a friend of mine, very high up in finance, said companies will be judged by how they dealt with their employees during COVID. That will be their stamp. And I think likewise, that we too will judge ourselves by how we treat other beings in a time where it is more challenging and stressful, where the world needs our kindness most. And when we recognize, oh, you know, I left that extra packet of toilet paper. I didn't take those vegetables that I don't really need this week. I smiled at that person who looked really sad. I think that also enhances our sense of well-being.
Absolutely. And having that ability to see en masse how it's affecting people and acknowledge, like you mentioned earlier, that theory of mind, putting yourself in someone else's shoes and knowing that there is a fear-based way of reacting. Actually, how can we, especially as that's impacting so many people, how can we be kind to others? What do we need to practice in those moments?
Okay, well, I think first and foremost, we can call on those on the front lines at those moments where we're feeling, you know, agitated. And remember that people are literally risking their lives day in and day out, loads of people, more than usual, to save other beings. So we can, I think we need something aspirational to look at, right? And then from there, recognizing how much love is coming forth from the doctors, from the shopkeepers, the people at the supermarket, the post people. I was going to say postmen, but it's post people, right? From all of those people who have continued to work at their own risk. we can look at that. And then I think we can sit down and engage in some formal practices like loving kindness meditation, like compassion meditation, which have been shown through research, not to mention thousands of years, which is probably more meaningful, to enhance our relationship to compassion and kindness, and do all other kinds of positive things for us, like enhance our immunity, allow us to feel connected to those around us and people that are new to us in our lives. Also that enhance the parasympathetic autonomic nervous system that gives us a sense of peace. So we move from inspiration to something formal, and we have these benefits as a result.
And actually we can really see how these acts of kindness are almost transitioning from self-care to sort of the care of family and friends, to the community. And actually when we start thinking a bit more globally, because this is impacting all of us, actually how do you think kindness, practices of kindness, can start to shape and change on more of a global level, change the world?
Well, I read more about the edicts put forth by the Mental Health Foundation. And what I was really interested in was that they said that from now on, they would like the UK government, I think Scotland has actually done it, to claim kindness as a core value. Now, I think that for many of us, even if we are worried about finances, have realized something that I have, which is we need a lot less than we ever thought. And we've heard that all the time. But now we really realize it, right? Because who cares if you have a new dress if you're not going out? And, you know, do we need all that makeup and all the fancy dinners that you may or may not have had? And, you know, just and. We don't really need all the devices, all the things. And I think we move away from that to recognizing that there are higher values for us than economic ones, which is really what the global, I want to say the global economy, it's the global economy. You know, the economy is based on constant growth, capitalism, need, desire, fear to buy more and more and more. And possibly we will emerge from this, I hope so, and say, we don't really need more. In fact, we started to notice, those of us who were safe during this time, that having less felt good. And taking care of ourselves felt really good. And being kind to other people mattered much more. So I hope that we shift away from that. And also when we read about the positive impact on the planet, I think with all of the terrible things that COVID-19 has brought, there has been some insight for us. And I hope that we can use that. But you know, the reality, Steph, and I don't mean to rain on anybody's parade, is that our brain is set up for worrying about survival and acquisition. So it's a real active process of deciding that this is a better way to live, all of us. And every time we live from that place, we make somebody else feel safer, and it's easier for them to do it as well. So I think those of us that have access to the resources internally to shift our consciousness need to really focus on that. And that inspires other people or provides the ground for them to change. I don't know if that really answered your question. It's a very complex one you asked.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite an unanswerable question anyway. Like, can kindness save the world? You know, there's lots of things sometimes that feels impossible, but it's almost like how the small acts of kindness sort of filter out and translate. And I really like the idea that it's more about the smaller acts of consciousness when we're having to resist the survival of I have to worry as a default. Yeah. And actually, Heather, as you were talking, and I was thinking about the very quick response to COVID-19 of online resources, and how earlier conversations with colleagues, we were talking about communication and a sense of belonging, and how actually the online platform, there is a way to kind of shape positively for us to be thinking about positive health, self-healing. And I wanted to hear a little bit about your initiative, Healthlinks.
So when I knew lockdown was going to happen, fear arose for me, right?
Mhm.
Like we're talking about, what will happen to my parents, what will happen to my business. And I needed to do something. Also, I was really frustrated because, as you know, Steph, I've been working on yoga as social prescribing, which is bringing people into activity groups to experience social connectedness, which is curative in itself, for years. And suddenly, we can't have that because of social distancing. So I just thought, what can I do to make things different? How can I also use the energy that I'm feeling right now for something good? And the first thing I did was I just offered a breath practice one morning, and I was floored that like 300 people showed up.
Oh my goodness, wow.
I thought, okay, well, I have a captive audience. So if I have a captive audience, I wonder what it would be like if loads of people around the world who are leaders in mind body health also had captive audiences. And could we use this time for transformation? Could we use it to help people that feel that they cannot cope?
Mm.
And can we also provide people with skills that speak to them to help them in their daily lives to change how they live?
Mhm.
And I was absolutely flabbergasted at the fact that I think everyone, maybe minus like one person that we asked, said that they would offer a talk for free. And we had no intention of ever monetizing. So it was a completely free venture. And in the first 2 weeks, 75,000 people visited the website.
Wow.
So I felt like, okay, we really did our job, you know? And we had 1 week where we had 10 talks a week, at 10 talks a day, every day. That was not sustainable.
Yeah.
I thought that people would just like sit there like Netflix, just watch one after the other. But what's actually come to pass is a lot of people can work from home.
Yeah.
So we've scaled back to 1 or 2 big talks a week, and we already have an archive of like over 100 talks on YouTube. So we figured people can go and watch those because I don't think anybody, none of us who put it together have watched, probably more than 10. So
Mm.
we'll leave it there and we'll continue to do this free for the public for I don't know how long. And it was really heartwarming. People were writing and saying, they were sitting in front of their computers, watching Healthlinks, feeling inspired, finding that desire to change their life was really ignited. And that's what I
Amazing.
want, I wish that I had a clone and then I would do more with Healthlinks. Yeah. I feel like it sometimes feels like two of me are working.
Yeah, of course. Well, yeah, you juggle so many things. It's really empowered work. It's amazing. And even by looking at the program, I was blown away by some of the people that were offering talks. Can you give an example of some of the talks that were there, just for people who haven't visited the website?
Well, like Ruby Wax gave a talk, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And Ruby Wax was very interested in the transformative power of this time. Dean Ornish gave a talk, who's like my hero. He's a cardiologist who determined through his research that through lifestyle intervention, we could reverse heart disease.
Wow.
So he's really a hero of mine. He's really a bigwig. Who else? Daniel Siegel, who wrote, The Mindful Brain. We had a lot of really influential people. My mentors, Patricia Gebhardt and Richard Brown. I was going to say Patricia Brown and the other way, but they both offered things. Yoren Bull, who is the founder of Meta Yoga. I mean, the list is so extensive that I can't remember, but I know that when Dean Ornish agreed to speak, I was like,
yes. And you know what? Maybe that wouldn't have happened in pre-COVID normal times. For initiative of that sort of wealth of knowledge to be given for free to kind of share and inspire people on an online platform like that. That's really what we're speaking to, actually, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Mm.
And I hope that people continue to benefit from it. And I'm also doing the breathing sessions, so those are fresh all the time on Wednesday mornings at 8 a.m. Anybody can sign up on the Minded Institute's website. Yeah. So that's another free offering. And Healthlinks is also trying to do on occasion like 3-hour retreats on the weekend for free.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
I was going to do one next weekend, but I have been so busy, as you know, during COVID-19 that I realized it's time to bring the kindness back.
Yeah.
It here.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has to be a constant ebb and flow.
Mm-hmm. Well, just before, Heather, we open it up to questions, just to recap where people can find you or follow your practices. You have the breathing practices via the Minded Institute. And what day and time did you say?
So that is always 8 a.m. on Wednesdays. I was doing it kind of just like whenever I was able, but I decided to make it a thing once a week, Wednesday mornings at 8 a.m. You need to sign up because you need to just get the Zoom link. You couldn't, there'd be no way for you to get on if you sign up. But go to the Minded Institute. There's like a thing that says, I think, free seminars or free workshops, and you can just book on there.
Okay. And then Healthlinks is?
Healthlinks.online. Someone else had healthlinks.com. So we had healthlinks.online. Yeah.
Well, it's been a total pleasure hearing all the things that you've had to share. And I wonder, just for the last sort of 10 minutes or so, if we open it out, and I'm sure you've inspired lots of thoughts, lots of new information, lots of knowledge for people to learn and absorb. I know I'll certainly be watching it all over again to take it back in. But if anyone would like to ask Heather a question or make a comment, you can do so in the chat function just down here. So if anyone would like to ask a question, now's the time, and then I can read it out and we can take that forward. Please don't be shy. I'm very sure many of you have lots of questions.
Or even a comment, something that they want to share. I also just want to share one quote, which is from Foucault. He said, self-care is a political act. Because when we take care of ourselves, we're better placed to take care of others. I always remember that, Every time I take care of myself, that's what it feels like. Every time I
multiple selves. That really fits, because earlier this week we were having conversations around trauma, and actually this period of time, some/most of us having a traumatic response, and actually beyond the individual level, it's a collective response to trauma that's needed. And that quote from Foucault, I think, really fits that.
Yeah, I love that quote.
Yeah. So there are no questions in the chat. Please do. Oh, here we go. So Yvonne says, bravo, Heather, on the speed of Healthlinks, and clever name as came up on Google after Netflix. Support.
Did it? Wow. Well, that's exciting. I did not know that. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for that comment, Yvonne.
Yeah, maybe I'll pose a question to them.
That's a good idea.
You guys can write it in the chat. How do you bring kindness into every day? What do you do?
Can I comment as well?
Of course. It's like that song from Jewel. In the end, only kindness matters. In the end. Yeah. Come on, you guys bring kindness into the world. How do you do it? Thanks for sharing. I'm starting my yoga TTC in October, and eventually like to do my yoga therapy training. How close do you think we are seeing yoga integrated in the healthcare of trauma? Daniela, yoga's integration into healthcare for PTSD will take a while. I don't think that that's going to be the condition that we'll see it first integrated for, because since that is more an acute mental health issue, the research base will need to be really robust. I think probably first for depression. We have it for lower back pain. I don't know if anybody saw, did you see, Steph, the article in the Telegram?
I did.
For comment as to what I thought about yoga being listed on the NHS. And I said, yes, for depression. But I think it would be lovely if we see that. On the other hand, though, the trauma community definitely understands the value of yoga, probably more than any other part of the mental health community. So we've got a restorative pose every day, right? Meditation, journaling, healthy eating. What about the rest of you? I have to believe you're giving kindness.
Yes.
I'll tell you a story.
I know my mum's on the call, so come on, Mama, share something. I know that you're a very kind soul.
This story, I think it's a really interesting one. So, you know, the 3 years I was living in the Buddhist monastery, I had no responsibilities. And you forget that it's so much easier to be kind when you have no responsibilities, right? When you're not in the monastery and you're not worrying about making money and you don't have an obligation and you don't have children and you can do anything. So you used to be able in Thailand to buy these batches of 50 roses. And I would go around and I would buy them and I'd just give them out to random people and they would smile and they would be so happy, you know, who's this stranger giving me a rose? One time I came to the UK and I did the same thing and people were like, what's in this rose?
It didn't translate then. Just suspicious.
Eventually you could see that people were, you know, feeling more stressed. And I'd say, there's nothing in this rose. I just wanted to bring kindness into your day. And it was such a cognitive shift for people. They looked like they would almost cry. And in some way that was more meaningful, showing me the real power of bringing kindness into a society with stress. Yeah, I gave them out to bus drivers. It's a lovely thing to do, right? If I did it right now, it wouldn't work because they'd say, you know, you touched it with your hands.
Can't even socially distance, like, you know, wet wipe it first or something.
Maybe at the end of the pandemic, if we have a vaccine or something, when nobody has to be concerned, I'll do that and say, it's just so nice to be in touch with you, my fellow human being. Here.
Yeah. It's a lovely act. It's a really lovely gesture.
Yeah, once I did it with a friend of mine and we wrote quotes and we attached them to all the roses. That was the most beautiful one we ever.
Oh,
so nice. But you have, you know, if you have no responsibilities, it's easier. And that again highlights that tension between having to take care of those everyday stressful things and wanting to give to the world. Trying to catch and reflect on thoughts which are negative and being kind to myself, that I'm not getting it right all the time, but I'm trying. Oh, I think that that's so important, right? We can be so harsh on ourselves, can't we? What else? What else do you do? I believe you do more. Yeah. I could also think about some great acts of kindness in my life. I've had so many. Just to pass the time, I'll tell a story. And this is, again, what happens when you're in that kindness train. I'll never forget this. I was in Malaysia, traveling from monastery to monastery, you know, going from where I was to somewhere else. And my partner and I at the time saw these fruit trees on these people's land, and we really wanted some papayas. So we went and we knocked on their door and we asked them if they wouldn't mind if we bought some of their fruit. And they gave it to us for free. And then they invited us in for tea. And we sat and we had tea with them. And then my boyfriend, he painted them a photo. Wait for what happened next. And we came back the next week to say hello to them. And they had a collection of diamonds from their travel. And they gave 10 diamonds to each one of us.
wow.
And then you know what we did? We then, because we were meeting different teachers, and over the course of a year, when somebody felt like they just touched our hearts in the deepest way, we gave all those diamonds away.
Wow. The gift that keeps on giving.
I know.
Roses and diamonds.
Yeah. You know, I just think that there's something about having trust and not worrying about what you get back. And it comes back remarkably. I mean, I don't want to promise, you know, don't give away all your diamonds if you need them, but I'm just saying that there is something quite remarkable in being willing to part with something just to brighten somebody else's day.
Absolutely.
It's greater than the joy of possessing something. We have another one. I practice radical self-acceptance. So I love that term, right? With my yoga practice and thoughts. Oh, and I was supposed to mention something, Steph, actually.
Oh yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's so interesting bringing kindness into our yoga practice. And I think it's twofold, because sometimes it's like the willingness to be more gentle, to not push that edge. And then in other times, the kindness in the yoga practice, and we forget this, that's the effortful piece, is like, I don't want to do this move, but actually I know it's really good for my body. And I know that I want to come out of this position right now, but I know that if I stay longer and I breathe, I'll process some of the struggles that I have. And I'm going to be kind to myself by being with discomfort. Because as we learn as well to be with discomfort, not in a forceful pushing way, but in a, can I just stay present? We build up the repertoire to be with the challenges of life. So kindness is sometimes showing up for the difficult as well. Yeah. So what else do we have here? Checking on loved ones that are alone, asking how they're feeling so they can share and hopefully feel better. Yeah, and that's so important. I have been shocked as to who has been contacting me. I mean, I had a hairdresser from like 3 years ago contact me to say, how am I doing? So many people that I haven't thought about in years coming and just saying, are you okay? How's your life? Are you well? Is your family all right? That might be something we can all do when we get off the phone. Text 2 people that we haven't spoken to in a long time and just say that we care about them. We hope they're well. That reverberates outwards. People who won't expect to hear from you.
It really speaks to that connection, doesn't it? And who comes to mind?
Yeah.
We have a few minutes left, so I'm wondering if there's any more or any sort of questions or final reflections on the talk, sort of comments that people would like to share, either to Heather, to her work, to our conversation. Any final questions?
They've been speaking to someone else each day. It's helped both parties. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay if they just want to listen.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Maybe we all just want to be kind of quiet a little bit.
Absolutely.
And be together. Maybe I'll just end with a loving kindness meditation for the world then, if nobody has any questions. Could we do that?
That would be really lovely, Heather. That would be really, really lovely. Yeah.
So let's just find a comfortable seated position. Have the eyes downcast or closed. And imagine that the breath is coming in and out of your heart. Your delicate, gentle, huge heart. The heart that we know that has energy that moves well beyond the body, 2 feet in front of you, or maybe 6 feet, I forget. Just breathe into the heart. And know that right now, just as you suffer, because it's part of being alive, there are so many beings around the world, human and not human, struggling in all different ways, due to mental health challenges, due to the pandemic, due to other reasons. And just breathe that in. You don't have to take in the pain, but breathe in the nature of the truth of suffering that is pervasive. And just being alive. And wish all those precious beings on this earth to be happy and peaceful, healthy and at ease. May they be able to take care of themselves joyfully. And may they possess the patience, wisdom, courage, and determination to meet the challenges that they are faced with. And let us send our loving kindness out from our hearts to the hearts of all other beings, whether they have real physical hearts or it's a metaphor. Send them your kindness. your wish for their wellness. And maybe if you practice yoga, you'll consider bringing them into your heart in the next yoga practice, dedicating it to them. Thank you all so much for taking the time to be present with me here this evening. Tomorrow night, I'm leading a loving kindness meditation at 7 again. If any of you want to sign on for that on the Minded website, it's again free, just like that. This one is. And I just want to express my gratitude to Steph, not just for this, but for everything she does. And, you know, she's been my student, she's been my colleague, she's amazing. I'd like to thank my friend as well. And she brings so much goodness to the world, and it's really an honor to know you and to be connected to you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Heather. That, yeah, I feel very, very touched by that. It's always a pleasure to sort of work alongside one another, and yeah, I feel very touched by the work that you do, very inspired, and I just hope that, you know, sharing those gifts with others, we can see change. So thank you to you for your time. Thank you to everyone for your time, for listening attentively, your questions, your thoughts, your reflections. This will also be shared, so feel free to watch it again. Follow Heather with her events, join us at More Yoga, follow the Mental Health Awareness Programme. In fact, I don't want to do any more promo. Let's just say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.